Good morning. I am going to go over FRQ writing for AP Psych. This is the short scanning on it. I did a little bit more when I gave the lecture in class, but I think this will get you what you need. So for those of you that were absent. So if you look here, you're going to see a prompt. This is a typical AP Psych prompt. It'll have a scenario, like a little story, and then it's going to have a list. It could be bulleted. Sometimes it has letters of different terms from psychology. And so what you're going to do when you write an AP Psych FRQ is you're going to create a paragraph for each one of these bulleted terms. So opiates, physical dependence, psychological dependence, tolerance, and addiction. And in each of those paragraphs, you're going to define the term. Okay, so what are opiates? So you're going to start, your first sentence is going to be opiates are, you're going to define it, and then you're going to apply opiates to the prompt. Okay, so in this case, Jane is using heroin, and heroin is an opiate. So you're going to talk about how heroin's an opiate. It's derived from the poppy plant, like opiates, and Jane's using it. Therefore she's using an opiate. All right. Each one of your paragraphs is going to be about 3 or 4 sentences, so it doesn't take a lot. And so it's not too bad to write FRQs for psych. The key to psych FRQs are vocabulary. You have to be able to define the term. So you've got to make sure all along you're practicing that vocabulary so that you can define and then you can apply it to the term. Now, psych has its own peculiarities when it comes to writing FRQs. And we use for psych the SOTAs method. This is how people who grade the FRQs want you to write it. To make it easier to grade and to make sure you score the points. It's all about scoring points when we're doing FRQs. So I'm going to go over the SOTAs with you. See the acronym here. S stands for space, okay? When you write your FRQ, you want to make sure that you leave plenty of space between each paragraph, okay? So again, every word that's bulleted or lettered gets its own paragraph. And so between each one, so on this one, you're going to be doing opiates, then physical dependence, you should leave a chunk of space. When you handwrite it, we always say leave 5 lines. The whole purpose behind this is so that you can go back and add to. So if you're writing your FRQ and you think about something that goes with opiates that you forgot, you still have room to go back up and add to it. It's not as important when we're doing them typed because you can always go in and space them. But when you handwrite it, which is what you would do for the exam, then you need to go back up and you need to leave plenty of space because the second letter is O for order. In psych, they want your answers in the order of the prompt. So when they look at your answer, it's going to match the rubric. Opiates are first, physical dependence are second, psychological dependence is third, tolerance is fourth, and addiction is fifth. It should be in that same order. So paragraph 1, you talk about opiates, and paragraph 2, physical dependence. Okay, so you're going to maintain that order. That's why you want to leave spacing so that if you think of something else, it's not at the bottom and you're drawing a bunch of arrows and it's hard to grade. We know exactly what sentences go with which paragraph. So make sure you keep them in order. Then you get to the keys, D and A, define and apply. The D is define the term, okay? You want to define the term. You don't always score for a definition. Most of the time it'll say definitions won't score, but sometimes there'll be a rare term like that most people don't know. And if you know the definition, oftentimes that's enough to score when most people don't even know what it is. They'll throw some weird ones in that AP exam. You won't see that so much on the test, the ones we give you for the test, but you'll see them on the exam. So you have to define it. This is why you have to practice that Quizlet, okay? Most of you are not, and it's going to come back to bite you in the rear. It's unlikely that your AP exam will be open note this year, and you have to know those definitions off the top of your head. So practice those Quizlets. Then apply. You have to take the term and apply it to the scenario. So in this scenario, we have Jane Doe, okay, and she's using heroin. So it's pretty easy to talk about heroin, okay, as an opiate. And so that's easy to apply. Physical dependence, you've got to know what physical dependence are, what the symptoms of physical dependence are, and then you've got to use facts about Jane that indicate that she has physical dependence to the drug. If the facts aren't there, you can always kind of add some additional facts as long as they go with Jane. You can't, so you can pull some facts in. It'll never be the answer that you just define it and you go, well, this word doesn't apply to Jane or to the prompt. If they have the word, you have to make it apply. Okay, so defining and applying, the application is how you score. And so it's important. And it says here, sometimes you have to add some of your own facts to make it fit. That's okay. All right. And then the last one is synonyms. For synonyms, all we're talking about is that you can't use a circular definition. So for physical dependence, you can't say physical dependence is when you're physically dependent on a drug. Okay, that's a circular definition because you're saying you're using the word for its own definition. That's when you have to use synonyms. You don't have to go out and find synonyms, big words for words that you're using, okay? And your synonyms don't have to be big words that you Googled, what is a synonym for physical dependence? Just use words to explain what physical dependence is. It's, you know, when the body needs the drug in order to function normally, and without it, you start exhibiting withdrawal symptoms, okay? I didn't use big words, but I used synonyms so that I explained the meaning. I didn't say physical dependence is physical dependence, okay? You know, so you can't use the same words as a definition. Use synonyms. That's all it's saying, okay? When you go to write this first FRQ, okay, you're going to take the prompt about Jane, and this is the same thing that we used when we did the notes on psychoactive drugs. We use Jane. This is the exact same scenario. All right, again, you're going to write a paragraph about opiates. When I say paragraph, 3 to 4 sentences should do it in most cases. Sometimes it'll be 2, sometimes it'll be 5. It just depends on the word, okay? As long as you're getting a good, solid definition and you're applying it to the facts, it's going to tend to change a little bit based on your writing. Some people say a lot of words without saying what they need to say, and other people can do it very minimalistic. So again, 3 to 4 sentences is probably just about right to make sure you've thoroughly explained it. Make sure that you're explaining it like you're explaining it to someone who knows nothing about it. Don't assume because you're writing it and their psych teacher's grading it that she knows everything about it. You have to make it clear that you understand it, you understand how it applies, okay? And you can't just assume that the psych teacher knows because they're grading it. You can't assume any facts. So you must be specific about that. Also, don't write opiates dash and then say, you know, drugs that are in the depressant family, because drugs in the depressant family, you have to use full sentences. If you don't use a full sentence, then it can't score, even if it's absolutely correct. So never put opiates dash or physical dependence dash. Just start with the first word. Opiates are drugs in the depressant family. They are painkillers and they mimic endorphins. Boom, there's your definition, okay? Full sentence, put a period at the end, and then talk about how opiates apply to Jane. That is going to be how you attack this. And so you do the opiates, you then skip a few lines, and then you talk about physical dependence. There's no need for any kind of introduction. There's no need for any kind of conclusion. You don't need transition words or transition sentences. It doesn't need to be an essay. It's, you know, take the word and define it and apply it in a paragraph, 3 to 4 sentences, skip some space, move on, take the next word, define it, apply it in a paragraph. They don't have to hook into each other. They are going to be hooked in the sense that they all apply to that same fact scenario. Sorry, I just went dark. And so that's all you have to do. So it makes it pretty simple. The hardest part is knowing the definition, okay? And again, that's why you want to practice it. Now, in this particular first assignment, I gave you some sentence starters and some like helpful hints about what you would write. So you can look at that. It just tells you here's what you should be writing for each one. You can use those sentence starters if you want to write this FRQ. It's our very first one. It's a practice one. You can use those or not use them. If it helps you, use it. Just take out the blanks and take out my explanation and fill it in with your own words, okay? So you can copy and paste this. You're going to do the FRQ in its own document. Don't type it in the instructions, and then you're going to submit it to Canvas. Okay, this is your first FRQ. For some of you, you've never written one before. We're going to get way better at this, but this is just, you know, kind of baby stepping in and doing it for practice. On your final exam, you'll have 2 FRQs. One of them is research-based, and we're going to start research this week. And the other one could be anything from psych. And so and all of them, both FRQs, you have 25 minutes each, and they'll have 7 bullet points, bulleted terms. So 7 terms per FRQ. And so that's really, just kind of the basis of FRQs. We'll go into more details about the do's and the don'ts and how to approach it. But if you can get down the fact that you need to define the term and apply the term to the prompt, and you can do that consistently, you will be scoring points. This doesn't have to be pretty, okay? It just has to be a correct definition, correctly applied, and that will get you the points to score and to get good grades on FRQs. So if you have any questions, you need additional help, always just let me know and I'll help you out with that, okay? Hopefully that's helpful.